Okay, so stay and speak of you. We are in for a ride this afternoon. We have, I'm happy to say, my friend again,
Yeah.
my Danny Friedland, Dr. Danny Friedland. Um, Danny, you've basically been looking at transformative leadership and how you shift people's way of leading, whether it's in healthcare. You ran a program called Peak Performance, helping people understand how they might lead better from their own peak. But then Leading Well from Within is your most recent program, and it seems to be super timely for what's going on right now in this time of COVID and coronavirus as well, right?
Yeah, very much so, Jeff. And it's this whole notion of leading well from within. We are just in extraordinary times right now. First of all, let me just start out, picking up on the thread of Teddy and then the family of MEA. I so appreciate you. I so appreciate all of you being here as well at this time. Part of the way we localize ourselves is that a big part of today's experience will be how do we come together in community at a time like this? And that core begins with leading well from within is premised on, if we want to lead well in the world, how do we first lead well inside ourselves? How do we fundamentally connect and navigate our own internal stress and self-doubt so we can really focus on what matters most? And then as we connect within ourselves, how do we connect in community to create a sense of safety, belonging, so in common cause, we can come together as well? And as I'll share a little bit more, where we find ourselves right now makes that really difficult to do. It makes that really difficult to do on so many levels, in terms of kind of what goes on in the brain, first and foremost. So it can literally feel like in moments like this that we're losing our minds as well. So I'm happy to share more on that as well.
Well, we're going to change our format, right, Danny? Usually we do an interview, and I think today we just decided to cede the stand to you because you've actually developed a process that works online that actually allows people to kind of engage with a lot of what you've been talking about.
Yeah, so I would like to just really kind of just talk, how do I communicate the minimal amount of words for you to be able to create the maximum amount of meaning in our community together. So I just have a few, if you'll indulge me with like a few framing slides, and then I promise you, I don't think it's going to be more than 4 slides, but I'd like 3/4 of this to be interactive. And the wisdom, by the way, the wisdom is not with any one person over here. Truly, the wisdom is in the collective. And so this experience I want to take you through is where we can actually literally experience our collective wisdom together. So with that, let me share, if I can, a few framing things. So, today's focus, when we're talking about leading well from within, is really on conscious leadership. It's, what does it mean for us to show up as conscious leaders at this time? And that word conscious leadership, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the conscious capitalism movement. It's been very, very influential, and I'm part of the community as well. And so conscious capitalism is, if you haven't heard of them, it's really an organization that's been founded or engaged by companies like Starbucks, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Best Buy, Patagonia, Southwest Airlines. And you get a sense of the vibrancy of these organizations. And the mission statement of the organization is glorious. It's, we exist to elevate humanity. And in many ways, where I was at MEA in June, I feel that that's kind of like, if you were to, the theme of it is, what does it mean to elevate, elevate ourselves at this point in our lives? And what does it mean to elevate our conscious leadership? And so they run on 4 tenets. And the first tenet is higher purpose drives. And so much of the work we do is tapping into our core purpose. And then it's making sure that all stakeholders in our environment are accounted for. And then it's about conscious leadership that drives conscious culture and a thriving environment. And Rajsa Soja, co-founded the organization with John Mackey. He actually wrote a beautiful book, that was called Firms of Endearment, and tracked 28 companies over a 15-year period and found that these companies outperformed the market by 10 to 1. So I became fascinated. Like, why? You know, what's the magic of that? And so part of it took me into a place of really wanting to understand this from a place of neuroscience. And the power of neuroscience, I think neuroscience is an act of compassion, understanding neuroscience, because when we begin to understand how our brains work, it really destigmatizes sometimes when we feel weak or flawed. When you understand how the brain works, you get very quickly understand, like, well, no, that's what the brain does under stress. And it's also an act of compassion, because then you understand that's how we all work in common cause. And so the way I look at this is that there's a 3-part evolutionary structure of the brain, the way the brain is organized. The brain stem, which is called the reptilian brain, the limbic system, or the mammalian brain, and then your higher cortical circuits, and particularly the prefrontal cortex in particular. And essentially, when you look at the architecture of the brain maps against, here's a simplified version of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Our brain is fundamentally, all the information flows come in first. Our brain is fundamentally safety first. It's the strongest circuits in our brain are in the safety circuits. And then when we feel safe, we engage more fully our, the limbic system, many functions over here, the most important of which one gives rise to our emotional capacity and love and belonging. And then this top part of the brain, the neocortex, the third part of the triune brain, and this prefrontal cortex in particular, gives us the capacity for high performance conscious leadership. This part of the brain over here engages in emotional regulation, so we can actually pause before we react. There are circuits of that come up from heart intelligence, gut intelligence, up into the front of the brain. These are circuits that give you the capacity to relate well to others, because they give us the capacity for empathy, compassion, morality, social awareness. These are also the circuits of executive function, judgment, planning, envisioning the future. And in addition, these are circuits that involve in metacognition. Your ability to step back and see the mental stream of your mind and then say, "Hey, there goes a damn crazy thought. Perhaps I won't act on that right now." And so this gives us the ability to pause before we respond. Now, when you look at the flows in the brain, what becomes really important, to add another connect in over here, is that there are flows of energy and information in the brain that are dictated by a formula. And the formula is, when the demands in our life exceed our resources, we cave into a safety frame and fight and flight behaviors. And just think of where we are right now, already in our demanding lives, now in the era of, this time of coronavirus, with the demand that it's imposing and the fear and the disruption of resources, many of us have tipped, and it can feel like we're losing our minds. Now, some of that going into fight and flight safety is adaptive, because it makes us hypervigilant for coronavirus contagion. But also when it comes to psychological threats, when we're threatened by stress, we fight for control. When we're threatened by self-doubt, we fight to prove self-worth or take flight from anything that leaves us feeling self-doubt. So down here in the safety frame, while it could be adaptive, this is where we can all also get really edgy with others. We could really disconnect our relationships. We can become even more isolated than usual. In this time of social distancing, we can become even more isolated. And when we're down here in a chronic sense, self-doubt, we land up.
Please mute. If you're not on mute, please mute.
Yeah, we come down here, we land up feeling emotionally exhausted. When we forego love and belonging, we actually experience disconnection. And then when we actually disrupt our circuits of significance, we have this reduced sense of accomplishment. Those three things, exhaustion, disconnection, and a reduced sense of accomplishment, that's the classic triad of burnout. And where we've moved right now in this time of, where we started out at the beginning of coronavirus contagion, where there's a lot of anxiety, many of us are moving into kind of a sense of burnout, fatigue, depression. So that, I just want you to, and I'm sharing that because if you're feeling any of that, I just want you to know and trust you're not alone and that you're not weak or flawed, but this is what the brain does to protect itself in states of high demand and low resources. So the question in conscious leadership is, do we have the skills and capacity individually and collectively to elevate ourselves into this creative mindset? And when you look at that, the questions become, how do we create an internal sense of psychological safety? How do we create a collective sense of safety? How do we create a deeper sense of connection with ourselves and with others? And how do we actually focus on what really matters most now? And to the extent that we do this, we will leave this time of coronavirus. If we strengthen our capacity for this, we leave this time of coronavirus with learning and growth and greater resiliency. And that's the promise, of the investment for this work. And here is the other piece of this. It's super important. When we go into a place of safety, here's the reactive mindset and here's the creative mindset. I'm going to turn this 90 degrees. We essentially oscillate between states of reactivity and creativity all day long. These low performance leadership states and these high performance leadership states. But we don't only experience reactivity and creativity in isolation. We are neuroscience, we are wired to connect. So we experience this in cycles of reactivity and cycles of creativity. And the greater threat right now is not viral contagion, physical viral contagion. I think the greatest threat is social and emotional contagion. So when we experience our reactivity and we're in our fight and flight, fighting for control, fighting to prove self-worth, when we're in our fight and flight reactivity, we trigger somebody else's stress and self-doubt. They then go into their fight and flight behavior. They then trigger us. And here we are in a cycle of fight, flight, trigger, and around we go. And when we trigger somebody else, they're going into their network and they're actually triggering others. And that's the spreading social contagion. On the other hand, when we're able to enter a cycle of creativity, and the cycle of creativity, the reason why Raj Sisodia titled his book, Firms of Endearment, is because fundamentally you can know how well a family does, an organization does, a society or community does, by answering the simple question, does this organization run on fear or does it run on love? Keep it super simple. Does it run on fear or does it run on love? And fundamentally, instead of fight, flight, trigger, can you enter a cycle when you can receive and give love with others, where we can receive others with empathy, understanding, and give with authenticity and care? And that's the fundamental cycle. So instead of when somebody comes to you and they're in fight and flight reactivity, instead of being triggered, can we see the suffering of individuals below their reactive response so we can receive them in a deeper way? Can we give them the concern to be able to kind of exit that cycle? And when you bring back Maslow here, what we understand then is individually and collectively, when we're in a cycle of fight, flight, trigger, we're moving up, we're moving down in safety and we're burning ourselves and others out. On the other hand, when we're in a cycle of receiving and giving, creating psychological safety, we create community belonging, and then we can actually more effectively get into co-creating what matters most together. And so this experience of moving into this creative flow, the stream of appreciation, there are a number of, and in my book, I've got, a 4-step framework that helps us elevate. But I want to just, in the precious time we have, give you a taste, just a taste of the power of this. So the first thing at the foundation of this is mindfulness. It's the ability for us to mindfully observe with openness, which gives us a deeper sense of safety, kindness, which connects us with our love and belonging frame, and curiosity, asking the questions such as what best serves next. The internal dialogue, the mindful dialogue of elevation and appreciation elevates us. So on that foundation of mindfulness-based inquiry or mindfulness-based appreciative inquiry, and we can dig deeper into that later, I would love to invite you into a process by inviting you into, in a moment, I'm going to invite you into a place where I'm going to invite you into dyads, where I'm going to invite you to interview each other on 3 questions. And this is modeled on appreciative inquiry. And again, we can go into greater depth on that after the exercise. But appreciative inquiry, which was developed by David Cooper Wright in the 1980s, and it's been leveraged over the decades by United Nations, Apple, Google, Facebook, Starbucks, a lot of big companies and small companies. It's a very well-worn and well-proven methodology to unlock individual and collective wisdom, is essentially a choreography of questions and interactions that unlocks individual and collective wisdom. And in short, appreciative inquiry is the best of what was, is, and could be. And so I'm going to invite you into a question from the past to clarify what's going on in the present, and then wishing into the future. And here's the 3 questions that I'm going to invite you to interview each other around. So I'm going to invite you to actually write these questions down, and as you're writing them down, allow yourself to reflect on them just as you're writing them down. So the first question is from the past, the recent past. When have you seen humanity at its best over the last month? So when have you seen humanity at its best over the last month? Question number 2, how are you evolving as a conscious leader right now? How are you evolving as a conscious leader right now? And then the third question is, what is your highest hope for what can emerge from all of this? What is the highest hope for what can emerge from all of this? For yourself, your organization, and the world at large. So let me just we're going to drop off here. I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to encourage you to all go into gallery view so we can all see each other. And this glorious community that's assembled here today. So let me just do this. And just to share some love. And I'm going to ask you each, for those of you that aren't on video right now, I'm going to ask you to please come on video, because when you go, if you go into a room and you're not on video, it's quite, it's a little bit vulnerable and painful for somebody else not to be able to see you as we're going through this exercise. So please do come on video. So here's the instructions as we take in. So, Les, I think I saw you in the chat box.
I just
questions.
I typed the questions in the chat box just in case you guys didn't write them down. They'll be there for you to reference when we're in.
3 questions. So these are the 3 questions. Where have you seen humanity at its best over the last month? How are you evolving as a conscious leader right now? And what's your highest hope for what can emerge from all of this right now for yourself, for your family, your organization, and the world at large?
For your...
In a moment, I'm going to break you into, invite you into dyads. And I see we have 39 people. That means we have 38 groups, not counting me. So we have, as you go into this question, it's an interview. So there's going to be interviewer 1 that's going to interview your interviewee on these questions. And there's a power in an interview choreography. And the power of the interview choreography, it gets the person who's being interviewed an opportunity to feel truly seen, heard, and understood. And you'll see that's the quickest way to psychological safety. So I'm going to invite you to actually interview each other for 7 minutes and switch. And so you would actually, Interviewer one would actually interview first question, second question, third question. And here's the secret source of this. So I want to emphasize, it's not a conversation, it's an interview. So this is not about you offering commentary, you're simply interviewing. And then as you're going to go into, just before you switch, and I'll put out some broadcasts into the room at the point where I'm going to invite you to switch. The interviewer says to the interviewee, what I most appreciate about you and what you've shared is. It's super important to be able to do that. What I most appreciate about you and what you've shared is. So let me give you an example. So Diane, imagine that I'm interviewing you right now. What I would say is, first of all, I mean, you're welcome to do a brief introduction, say, hi, I'm Dan, and whatever you want to say, just in, 10 seconds or 15 seconds about you. And then as you enter into the connection, you enter into the interview. We're interviewing with mindful openness, kindness, and curiosity. So there's a warmth. So I would say, hey, Diane, I'm really great to be here with you. So where have you seen humanity at its best over the last month? And you would share. And if I had any clarifying questions, I'd ask clarifying question, but I wouldn't engage in conversation. And then I would go next and say, so how are you evolving as a conscious leader right now? And then I would say, so what is your hope for, what could emerge from all this for yourself, for your family? And you can see that more than the content of the question is the tone of the question, right? There's the tone of the question. There's a tone of caring and interest in the question. And then I would finish by saying, Diane, what I most appreciate about you and what you've shared, boy, you have shared such a wealth. I'm so touched by what you've shared. What I so appreciate about you is, and I'd give you my heart, literally in terms of that, the heart of appreciation. And then we would switch. Now you have 7 minutes. If you don't get to answer everything in your 7 minutes, that's okay. So in other words, don't go into that. The important thing is I want you to both have equal time to share. So if you don't get to the end of the thing, the tone of the questions will be enough. And if you do happen to have more time, stay curious until you switch, until you hear so let me ask you, are there any questions about this process before we go into the rooms? Any questions about that? Does that seem, if that all feels good, hold up both hands if that feels right on, okay? And then again, I'm going to ask for those that aren't, on camera, and then when you go in, obviously come off mute as you go in the room. So now I'm going to invite you into the rooms, and I'm going to create 36 rooms. So there should be 16, 17, that would be 18 rooms, right? So let me go 18 rooms, 2 in a room, and here we go. And if you have any problems in the rooms, just come back to the main room. If you have any problems, and we can have a discussion in the main room as well.
So you're going to get a pop-up, just say, enter room. It'll ask you.
Exactly. And then you'll see some instructions at the 7 minute mark to actually switch. Okay, enjoy. We should go into our little wavy signs as we go into our rooms. Here we go.
7 minutes each. So Danny, I just hit later. We can all do that as like Jeff hit later. Can we see who is in what meeting room?
So what I have right now is, I see that, Cheryl, it looks like everybody's in a room right now. And that's all happening. Let me pause the recording over here. Okay. Resume recording.
John, why don't we get to see you?
We go. This is so cool. I love it as people come back. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. There's Alana. How are you doing, Alana? It's so good to see you. Huh. Hi, Gail and Sean. All right. Just give everybody just a few more moments. Here we go. Awesome. Everybody came back. Look at that. Everybody's back. Awesome. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay. This is my favorite part. This is my favorite. Oh, by the way, I've got a new one for you. Whenever you want to express love, this is where we polish the pearl, right? If we all want to polish the pearl together. And then put your hand up to the camera. And yeah, you get to radiate love. We get to radiate love.
I wish I could screenshot
a little modification. If we want to bring our heart into this.
When you do Reiki, you do that.
Exactly, yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so that's just a little modification of polishing the pearl and love for each other.
I felt it.
This is my favorite part of the whole session, and that is I'm going to invite anybody who wants to share to come off mute, and I'm going to invite you to share what did you either most appreciate about your partner or yourself or this experience as a whole. So what did you most appreciate about your partner or yourself or the experience as a whole? So who would like to go first? Oh, yes, Diane, I see you. Did you just, so if you come off mute. Oh, thank you so much, Diane.
Hi, I love this exercise, and I was paired with the most wonderful woman who's been working on this project to match seniors who might not be able to afford housing in the modern economy with nursing students who might not be able to afford housing during their nursing programs, and put them together. And she hasn't been able to get people to listen well, and all of a sudden this situation has created a situation where people are reaching out to her, and her project has grown not just legs but I think wings, and she's like just a super sweet, amazing person. Her name is Barbara. So that's it. That's all I have to share.
Okay, well, let's do this. And for you and for Barbara,
thank you.
Thank you. A lot.
Right. So I was sharing with Pat, who is delightful, and I loved when he opened up and he referred to the Dickens quote. He said, "It was the best of times and the worst of times." I was like, "Oh, that's flipping brilliant." You know? And what I loved, Pat talked about when you, like the thing that you fear the worst, when that happens, what a sense of liberation there is, and how you then just relax into things and then can find a space of creativity. And I said, you know, not everybody would do that. So I thought that was just such a brilliant approach, and I really appreciated that.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Thank you, Alana, for you. Okay. Yeah. You know, it reminds me, Alana, this notion, it's been said, never waste a crisis. Never waste a crisis. And the glory of this right now is we're in a time of incredible disruption. And so where things were pretty much entrenched, and, you know, even the work that I do, you know, people, when the work of transformation, for many people, when times are good, is elective. There's a ripeness right now to this work of transformation. So it's just, thank you. Who else would like to?
I want to just speak up. I was about ready to volunteer, but Alana beat me to the punch, but that's okay. Because I just really enjoyed my time with her. And we were getting right to the end, and I didn't have time to completely finish what I really appreciated about her. You know, first of all, she's such a delight to talk to. You know, we're one of those rare people where you just sort of feel this tranquility, you know, kind of washing over you, and you're drawn in, and before you know it, you know, you're sharing everything, and I'm talking about stuff that I hadn't thought about before. I mean, she's a wonderful listener, and I thought it was really a nice experience, because I thought I had those answers all worked out when you gave us the assignment. But as Alana asked the questions and as she responded, not obtrusively like some people do, she didn't try to steal the conversation from me.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of body language responses and facial expressions, and I could just feel it kind of coming through the video. It was very nice.
Pat, well, first of all, I just want to, I'm so appreciative for what you've shared over here, because you're raising something that really actually unleashes the magic of this process that you've just been through. So let me ask you, how many of you felt psychologically safe with the person you were with? Show of hands. Look at that. You see, every hand's gone up pretty much, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, Dory. You had to feel psychologically safe with us because you came back to the main room. All right. And so the part of this is literally when we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety, belonging, and significance. You are literally having the experience of that. It's not conceptual, and that's what goes on, by the way, at MEA. When we're at our weeks, we drop in, and certainly with those talking circles, we're actually forming, you know, whether it be day 1, day 2, we're getting to psychological safety. We then feel more connection, and then we're willing to do the work of actually looking into what really matters in our life. And there's an effervescence that happens when we actually feel safe and community. There's a natural effervescence, and it becomes joyful, and we unleash like an experience of wellness and well-being together. And so first of all, you know, in our invitation over here, it was quite bold where I asked, you know, I suggested that we were going to come together to create an experience that we often experience in MEA. How many of you would say that you've got a taste of what MEA feels like just being here together right now? Yeah. So the powerful thing over here, the power of MEA is the profound, it's a mix of choreography and questions that unleashes an experience. It's a choreography and questions that unleash an experience. So when you ask generative questions and you put this into a place, and the reason why the quickest way to get a psychological safety with a group is 1, 2, and many. So the 1 is you writing down your questions, giving you enough time to reflect so you don't feel like you're on the spot. So you have enough time to reflect, and then the act of you being interviewed by just one other person in a confidential space allows you to feel seen and heard, as opposed to you just sharing. Just the act of being interviewed and then being appreciated for what you've been interviewed on, that gets us to a very quick place of psychological safety. And then when we come back and you're sharing about what you appreciate about the people you are with, now we're actually feeling psychologically safe as a community, and we're letting our community, and we're beginning to talk about what really matters. And there are other steps in appreciative inquiry that goes into, like, how would we like this to endure? So there's these steps on dreaming, designing, and deploying steps to make it so. So we could take it further in that realm of significance as well. So Pat, there's something that happened that you said that's so profound. And that's why I wanted everybody to be on video. It was crucial for everybody to be on video today. And that is, how do we know we're well received and we're safe? And here's what happens. In our limbic system, the limbic system where the amygdala arises, scans for emotional memory, or scans for actually danger. And what we're doing at the subconscious level is we're going, and it's very strong circuitry in the subconscious circuits of our brain, We are continuously scanning our environment. Am I safe or not safe? Am I safe or not safe? Is this person a reward or a threat to my time? And the moment we match for unsafe, we'll go into fight and flight behaviors that really disconnect us. On the other hand, when we feel safe, we relax, we form community, and then we can be much more creative and innovative and work in common purpose. So the kick of what you said, the reason why I got so excited about what you said, is how do we know we're well received? And it's through the non-verbal language on Zoom. And when we're together, but on Zoom, it's so important that we're here on video intimately, and the non-verbal cues of leaning in and nodding and putting hands on our heart, you know, and expressing ourselves. We can feel the love and care coming through. You felt, am I right, Pat? You felt that, right? And that allowed you to feel safe. Now, if we had just gotten one eye roll from somebody like, oh God, you know, that would have shut us down. We would have gone into that. So the power of Zoom is giving yourself the gift of vulnerability and the opportunity to be well received. And when we do that, we create psychological safety, belonging, and we rise towards safety, and our ability to hold the space in leadership, conscious leadership, for others to do the same is what enables to do this at scale, both individually and for our teams and organizations and our families.
Can I ask a question?
Please, Pat.
So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I think that women are better than this, at this than men. That's my opinion. My wife can meet somebody and 15 minutes later, they're hugging each other. Yeah. And I look at her like she's from another planet. You know, how can she possibly do this?
Yeah.
And team to circle each other initially. We're kind of wary of each other. We're checking each other out, and our facial expressions and our body language all create these blocks. Is that just my perception, or I'd like to hear your thoughts on that?
There's overlap over here, but there certainly is. When you look at the safety frame, the belonging frame, and the significance frame, there are stress responses that map to each of those frames. So for example, the threat response, where we go into fight and flight, takes us into the safety frame. Then you have a tend and befriend response. When people come in, you know, it's the part where we actually release under stress. We also release oxytocin. And it was initially described by Shelley Taylor, characterizing it more in women, that women tend to tend and befriend more easily than men. And then you go into the challenge response in the area of significance, where we're leveraging the energy of stress for outcomes that matter most, and that's a high performance stress response. So in general, men can go into the threat response more easily than women that can go into the tend and befriend response. So men, when they're stressed and feeling insecure, we may go into fighting to posture more or withdrawing, either getting aggressive or isolating, whereas women will look to actually connect. That said,
yes.
That said, there's a tremendous amount of overlap as well. And this is all workable as well, that, you know, we can cultivate, men can cultivate, you know, a greater sense of empathy as well. And there's certainly many men, you know, that already are just very empathetic and aware.
Yeah, thank you.
And on that note, Danny, you're exactly on time. Thank you so much for your time. I think you are personally like a therapy. Just having you around and talking to you is always uplifting. You're just a joy, Danny Friedland. We really.
Jeff, you're welcome. By the way, before we end this, can I invite you all, just if you want to actually express 1 or 2 words of appreciation. You know how when we close, and if you just put like actually 1 word, and the reason why if we can do just 1 word of something that's evoked in your heart right now, because when we're done, we can actually send out a word cloud with the experience of what this, so if you wanted to actually share 1 word that captures the experience that you've just had, what would that word be, or how are you feeling? or how you're feeling, just one word, and then we'll be able to send that out with a recording as well. Ah, beautiful. Oh, I'm loving this. Compassion, love, connection, enlightenment,
Understanding.
refresh, joy, positivity, uplifting, positivity, lit, I love it, resilient, understanding, gratitude, Pat, delighted, gratitude. Oh, that's so awesome. Authenticity.
Who said Pat?
Oh, passion. Oh, amazing. Oh, what a great summary. What a great summary. Lit, two lits now. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's so good. Thank you.
Gang. Thank you so very much. Danny, thank you so very much. We'll see you again soon, hopefully.
Yes.
And for the rest of you, take care of yourselves. You've been hearing from us, lots of mail, lots of things going on. Many of you have written to us today regarding our big ask. We just appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love.
Thank
you.
So great to see you.
So much.
Bye.
Thank you. It's great.
Bye. Bye, John. Bye, Dave.
Bye.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.
okay.